Listen Up with Jim Potts. Listen up, business owners, CFOs, human resource managers, and all managers and supervisors. Jim Potts is answering and addressing your questions and concerns, helping you stay out of court. Furthermore, please be advised that Jim's answers are not legal advice and are only intended as a guide based on his years of experience. The phone lines are open. 1-855-4-J-POTS. That's 1-855-457-6887. You can also email us at listenup@jameswilliampottsllc.com. Ready to listen up? Here is Jim Potts.
Hey, Jim Potts back on the air. Well, I got a lot of positive comments about the piece we did last week on the active shooter in the workplace. Some people have contacted us, and I think that's pretty cool. So we really do appreciate the emails started coming in right away on that. So I do appreciate the positive, one or two negatives. But, you know, that's how it is with this. You know, you can't please everybody all the time. I couldn't imagine why anybody would not think it's a good idea to be prepared, but it's all good, whatever the case may be. Now, look, what I'm going to be talking about today are 12 mistakes employers make in paying non-exempt workers. Now, hear me on this. Normally, the issue is exempt workers become the issue. And, exempt people means misclassification, calling them 1099 people or 1099 employees, treating them as independent contractors. This segment is going to be on the opposite, those that are non-exempt, which means this is just your hourly people. Now, let me just tell you, there is so much litigation on the wage and hour front on a national basis even regarding how people pay their non-exempt or / hourly people. Some people want to call it, non-salaried individuals, and that's fine too. But these laws, especially in California, are really creating a gold mine, a cash cow for plaintiff attorneys out there, and quite frankly, for employees who want to go to the local labor board regarding how they were paid. Now, look, you've got to be careful out there as employers. The people do not, the labor board, the plaintiff attorneys, the courts do not care about an employer's good intention and that how you were trying to work with your employees because an employee wanted things, done a certain way, such as, oh, don't worry about paying me the overtime, just give me the straight time. I'm a team player, don't worry about it. And now an employer turns around and says, okay, I think that's great. And they don't pay him the extra overtime. They just pay him straight time for the hours worked. Even if they work 48, they pay him 48 hours. 8 hours is straight time rather than 8 hours of time and a half. Now, look, this may sound like it's very elementary, but trust me when I tell you, this is an issue that we get every single day where employers are not paying their non-exempt employees correctly. And you've got to understand that it is on you as an employer to understand all of these laws. And I know that gets tough. So I have to tell you that on December the 1st of this year, of 2016, because of the new federal law regarding the payment of exempt employees, that's all going to change things. December the 1st, there's going to be approximately 1.4 million employees, exempt workers, that are going to transition to non-exempt status. It is timely that we turn around and come out with these issues beforehand to make sure that once again that we're going to be dealing with everybody in the correct manner. Now look, for some employers this may not matter. The threshold dollar amount, by the way, is going to be $47,476 under federal law for a person to be called exempt. That's correct, to be called exempt. So you have to understand, some employers are going to turn around and say, you know what? I can't afford the $47,000 a year in some of my business. Think about some of these fast food places. They're not going to be paying, these assistant managers, et cetera, almost $48,000. So what are they going to do? They're going to probably make them an hourly employee. So way in advance of this, what you need to do to start preparing, I feel like there's no time like the present to correct any of these errors that might be on the horizon. So let's go through that. Now, one, not paying for unapproved overtime. I'm giving you the common mistakes that employers make. Here's the typical example. An employer / manager tells an employee, if you don't have your overtime approved, you will not be paid. That right there is going to be a violation. You have to understand, even if they work the unapproved overtime, you've got to still pay them. You can reprimand them, you can suspend them, you can even fire them, but you've got to pay them. If you don't pay them, then they are going to be entitled not only to the overtime that you didn't pay them and interest and penalties, and the penalties are going to include a day's wage for every day that you improperly failed to pay them that overtime. All because you said that it wasn't authorized, so you weren't going to pay it. You cannot do that. Number 2, not paying for extra work employees volunteer to do. Now, when I say volunteer, I'm putting that in quotation marks. Why? Because employers, especially employers that are active in the area of working with nonprofits, as an example, and there's some event that's coming up, and the employer owner is very much in love with the charity that he supports, which is great. But then he expects his employees to do some volunteer work on that. Let me tell you something. That is not the smartest thing to do, because you have to understand, even though you may tell the employees, look, this is absolutely voluntary. You give them a paper to sign that they recognize that this is completely voluntary. Look, here's the deal. They still work for you. The argument is always going to be that they're under a certain amount of duress because they don't want an issue with their employer, because the employer loves his charity and does expect all of his employees or her employees to in fact work as a volunteer. You got to understand do not do that. And I don't care what they sign, because you already know that you can't sign away your rights in California. I've talked about that before, or any other place, quite frankly. So this business about the fact that they signed off on it, that doesn't go anywhere. So I don't want you thinking that it's okay for them to do volunteer work. It's not. Now, the third issue, comp time. Here we go with that one. I spoke to you about that a couple of weeks ago, on the comp time issue. Compensatory time off. Don't make a mistake about comp time. Here's how comp time works. If you tell a person, let's say a person works Monday through Friday, they work 9 to 5, whatever it is, they work an 8-hour, 40-hour week, but on Saturday you tell them to come in because you've got a special project that has to get out. They come in on Saturday and they work for 4 hours. And you tell them, I tell you what, I'm going to give you comp time. So on Monday, instead of coming in at 9 o'clock because you worked 4 hours today, you don't have to come in until 1 o'clock. Therefore, it's comp time. I'm giving you those 4 hours back. That is wrong. You have to understand that comp time that they physically worked was at the rate of time and a half. So the comp time also has to be at the rate of time and a half. So on Monday, when you told them to come in at 9 o'clock, that they were supposed to come in at 9 o'clock but they don't have to come in until 1 is incorrect. If it's at time and a half and they work 4 hours, that's 6 hours you owe them because of the time and a half rate, which means that instead of coming in at 1 o'clock, technically on Monday they get to come in at 3 o'clock and leave 5. That's comp time. That's the way it's supposed to be done. All right? Okay. Now, there's some employers that improperly withhold pay for the breaks. Remember, breaks are all paid. All right. So I don't know, there's some people that make those mistakes. I never understand those because all paid breaks. I'm not talking about lunch. I'm talking about, as an example, under California law, if every 4 hours a person works, they get a 10-minute break. Improperly paying for lunch periods. Look, you may turn around and pay for a lunch period because a person works, but it's what they forget sometimes is that you've got to pay also the overtime rate. The penalty rate, because even though they work through their lunch, they get paid for it. But because they didn't get the lunch, you're going to owe them 1 hour premium pay. So keep that in mind. The next one that they always get caught up on is failing to pay for off hours work. We get those claims all the time. My employer had a no overtime policy. So what did they do? They turned around and told us, well, you clock out, okay? And then a person clocks out, and now they're required to continue to work. It doesn't work that way, so you cannot do that. So you have to understand that when a person is off the clock, That's a violation. They got to be paid even though they're off the clock. All right? So don't have them work off the clock. Leave them on the clock because that's for liability purposes as well. Another big mistake. Number 7, improperly paying for on-call time. Listen, if you turn around and tell an employee that they're on a pager, or you could be called over the weekend and they got to carry a pager. I know that's a little outdated, but if you carry a pager, or you got to be, subject to on-call. So here's the cell phone. And now they have to stay close to home over the weekend because they can't go out of town. You got to understand, that's on call. If they're on call, that means you got to pay them for that time. You've got to pay them for the time that you have them on call. So if you have them on call Saturday from 9 to 5, even though you never call them, you're going to owe them for that time. Don't make that mistake. Employers also make mistakes about not paying people for travel time. Big issue. Travel time. Look, travel time, they're still working. They got to get paid for travel. So what you need to do is schedule that travel. Even if they're flying someplace, that flight leaves at 9 o'clock in the morning. They normally start at 9. That's fine. They get on that plane at 9 o'clock. They zoom out of here. They're being paid for that time that they're up in the air. Why? They're on company business, not their personal vacation. You've got to pay them. Now look, watch out. The last one I want to tell you is to watch out for off-duty emails. Technology is creating problems for employers. You got employees at home responding to emails. You got to understand that's work related. So do not require them. Put out a policy and say you're not to answer emails after work. All emails get answered between the working hours when you're in the office. Period. I know they got some employees out there that are just team players and they don't mind doing that. I'm telling you, make sure you put out an email that they should not be doing that. All right? All right, with that last comment, it's time to close out this segment. But let me remind you, you can also hear us on Facebook at Listen Up and subscribe to us on iTunes. Just search for Listen Up with Jim Potts. And as a reminder, we take calls every third Friday between 9:45 roughly and about 10:15, 10:30. Or, you can call us at 855-4J-POTS or 855-457-6887. Or you can email us at listenup@jameswilliampottsllc.com. Okay, I'm Jim Potts. Thanks for listening. I'll continue to fight the fight if you continue listening. Bye.
Thank you for being a part of Listen Up with Jim Potts. We take your calls every third Friday at 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time for your questions and concerns. Call us at 1-855-4J-POTS. That's 1-855-4J-POTS. Again, that's every third Friday at 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time at 1-855-4J-POTS. Like us on Facebook, subscribe to us on iTunes, and link up with us on LinkedIn. You can also email us at listenup@jameswilliampottsllc.com. Until next time, make it a great week.